All right, let's get started. This training is on fundamentals and accessibility. This is just going to be an accessible PDF overview. It's not going to dive in very deep. We actually have a follow-up webinar at the end of April, so 2 months from today's date, that will dive a lot deeper into the accessibility of PDF. This kind of give you an idea of getting started with accessibility. That training will go more in depth on how to remediate terribly accessible documents, or inaccessible documents, that is. So we'll just go ahead and get started here. First thing, one question I get asked quite often is, exactly what a PDF is as a document. PDF stands for Portable Document Format. It's a common document type that's shared between a lot of professionals and a lot of businesses just because of a few features of it. One, that every aspect of that document can be locked down in one way or another. There are ways to lock down certain aspects of it where, one, it cannot be made changes to, or it could be features of that document that are completely locked down unless you have a password. There's a lot of in between. There's, I think, like 7 to 10 different things that can be locked and unlocked on a PDF document. So a big portion of it has to do with the format and the security of the document. The PDF was invented by Adobe. That's the company itself. The application that's used to edit and view PDFs originally was the software Acrobat. There are some third-party software out there now that can both edit and view PDF documents. When people get a lot of these terms mixed up about if it's an Adobe document and Acrobat, they get those terms mixed up. So I use this comparison between Microsoft Word and Adobe to try to simplify that information. So most people are familiar with a Microsoft Word document or a Word doc. That parallel is an Adobe Acrobat PDF or an Acrobat PDF. That just kind of simplifies the concept of what a PDF is and what it's used for. Now, when it comes to what makes a PDF accessible, I have a few points here. This is not all of it, but these are the most common and the most necessary aspects of a PDF for accessibility. The most important part of an accessible PDF is the fact that it does have searchable text. One of the biggest problems I see with PDF documents is a lot of people, rather than creating a PDF document, they'll use a feature called print to PDF. This is wrong on so many levels. When you print to PDF, the only purpose for that feature is to print. It just changes the file type into a PDF document just so that it makes it printable. One of the big things that feature does is it takes each individual letter and turns it into a photo. So imagine how many, like if you have a full document of text, every individual character on that page, every period, punctuation, letter number, etc., all becomes a photo. So when somebody's trying to read that with different screen reading technologies or different types of assistive technology, you can kind of get an idea where that becomes broken and destroyed. It essentially becomes a scanned document of text images, if that makes sense at all. With that, users are not able to select the text or edit the text or really manipulate the PDF in any way to make it accessible. At one point, I took a PDF document to try to leave it in that format and make it as accessible as possible without going through the Acrobat tools. An hour and a half in of a simple document, I gave up, just because it is a very, very difficult thing to do. Really important thing when it comes to accessible PDFs is you always start with a source file. Typically, it's going to be a Word document or something like that. If you have a Word document that's accessible and you create the PDF appropriately, that is using the feature of not print the PDF, but save as PDF or save as Acrobat PDF, will actually keep a lot of the structure and the accessibility from that Word document that will translate over into an Acrobat document, which is very important. Another accessibility feature of PDF documents is the fonts you use. The fonts in an accessible PDF, they must contain enough information in that font so that Acrobat can extract all the characters to text for purposes other than just displaying the text on the screen. You have some wild fonts out there that may look pretty, but when it comes to converting those fonts to a readable text for a PDF document, sometimes those things are destroyed. Common thing to do when you create accessible documents is to try to pick a sans serif font, as I've done here on the screen. It's very simple lettering. It doesn't have those little stylized little ticks at the top of the letters or the bottoms to kind of make them look fancy. It makes it very easy to understand. Also, using camel case, as I've done here, the first letter of every word is capitalized to make the text easier to read, even without a screen reader. Just for somebody with low vision is able to read it a lot easier. Another thing to keep in mind are hyperlinks, navigational aids. Navigational aids such as links, bookmarks, headings, table of contents, and there's a preset tab order for form fields. To set that stuff in ahead of time makes that document much easier to understand. For hyperlinks, you want to use clear, concise text on the screen that is, in effect, linked. You don't want to say click here, because if you have a document with 12 click here's and somebody with a screen reader is tabbing through all those links on the page, they don't know what all those click here's actually are. You want to have your links detailed like document for presentation or Word document link for presentation. Things like that would be a lot easier for somebody who's using assistive technology to understand the document much better. With the navigational aids such as headings or headers and bookmarks, table of contents, etc., provide a structural element to the document, especially if you have multiple pages in that document, to allow somebody using assistive technology to bounce between different sections of that document to better understand what's in there. So just as a sighted person will look at a table of contents or just kind of flip through the pages of a book reading heading titles to look at the different sections or chapter titles, etc., putting those navigational aids in there like headers and table of contents allows somebody who uses a screen reader or assistive technology to be able to do the same thing. Kind of browse through headers and find what sections they can better pull information out of, rather than having to read through an entire document to find one section that may pertain to them. Those kind of things help out quite a bit as well. Using alternative text descriptions for non-text elements. So if you have a photo, a graph, or anything that's a visual representation of information or data, you want to use the alternative text features. These alternative text features will kind of give, again, if there's information conveyed to a sighted person, alt text allows you to convey the same information to somebody using assistive technology or screen reader. So if you use a photo to explain how happy a person is from opening a gift, you want to put that in the alternative text, and describe the individual in the image, describe that they're happy and that they're opening a gift. Things like that will go really far to making that document more accessible to more people. Again, with a graph, if you just have a graph showing an upward trend of maybe stocks or financials, having that alternative text attached to the graph that allows a person using an AT to get that information. You want to describe what's being represented in that graph. Whereas a sighted person can see that graph and understand that there's an upward trend. For a non-sighted person or someone using AT, all they know is there's an image there and they don't know what it is. So using an alternative text for that graph to convey that information is extremely helpful. Also, having a proper title and document language. Neat thing with Adobe Acrobat is they allow you to both set a title for the document and a language. Where the language comes in and is very important is if, say, somebody's maybe bilingual and you have created a document in one language, it allows that screen reader software, that AT, to understand what language that document is in so that it can better use its internal programming to better pronounce words. So if it's particularly, say it's a Spanish or Creole document, that AT understands that and is able to read that text to the individual with the proper pronunciation of words and syllables. That makes it really helpful. The title indication is really nice. So if your file type, you have your file type, not file type, but your file name spelled out for a way that makes organization better, but doesn't convey the topic of the document, you can actually put in a clear and concise title that when somebody is viewing that document, they will get that full title of the document and maybe just not the file name, which makes it really helpful. Now, when you get into structure tags and proper reading order, this is something I'm going to cover in a lot more depth on the next webinar, but just to kind of give an overview of the importance of these sections here. Say you have a magazine article and you have blocks of text all over the screen, as well as photos, graphs, maybe a text blurb, a quote here and there. Having that structure tag in proper reading order, you could actually tag a PDF document of which body of text to read in which order, which photo to place next along with that alternative text, as well as a quote. So whereas, again, a magazine doesn't always read from top to bottom, left to right, it may jump around a little bit. So you're able to use that same concept of reading order that you would get in a magazine or other document and actually order that through the PDF to allow that AT or screen reader to go through that document and read it properly, which makes it, again, more accessible, and that's really the whole goal. A couple other accessible document characteristics. Trying not to rely on color or sensory characteristics alone to convey a meaning. And that kind of goes back to the graph to convey that data. You want to use not just color or sensory characteristics, but you also want to use words, maybe symbols, or other forms of information to convey that over. It's very important to use color combinations that provide proper contrast. Like on this screen here, we have the white background with a black text. That offers a good bit of contrast between the two colors. If you have questions about contrast, you can look up online. There are color contrast tools that will say if you have a logo or some kind of graphic poster you want to design, that you can put in the two colors and it'll tell you how much contrast is between them and whether you're kind of in a green zone, a yellow zone, or a red zone, so not much color contrast. Like imagine charcoal text on a black surface. It's really difficult to see that, or yellow on white. Again, that color contrast is too close to allow you to read it properly. Black on white is considered the standard. A lot of people prefer white text on a black background just for sensory or light sensitivity, and you still get that same contrast, and it makes it very easy on the eye. using text instead of images, as I mentioned before, with that with those photos and the alternative text. If an image is a good thing to convey convey information, definitely use it. But if it's not necessary and you can convey the same information in text, it may be a good idea to do that as well, either in the alternative text or just in the document itself. Convey all that information in the document and then hit it again with the alternative text, just so you can get more information in there and make it more accessible to more people. Another thing I would mention is just the know your audience of who you're writing to when you're creating a document. So you don't want to use, say, high-level PhD legal jargon when you're talking to a classroom of third graders. And keep in mind other developmental disabilities and other individuals. So when you're writing a document, keep in mind of the audience that you're writing it for. And good rule of thumb is bring it down a grade level from where you're at, just to make it a little easier to understand. You don't want anybody straining over the concept of your paper using simple words, simple sentences. Usually you can convey a lot more information that way, and it's a lot easier to digest. It's important not to use flashing or blinking elements. Again, sensory issues come from this, and it's just really distracting on the document. And then, of course, using consistent navigation, identifying elements, and that goes into that proper reading order and properly tagging those documents. At this point, I just want to ask if you have any questions, any comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions through this. Through this screen, I just kind of using like some don'ts and do's, and this is kind of an example of some of that from the previous pages about not using the visual elements only to convey image or convey meaning. As kind of see on the left-hand side of the screen, I have don't in red. It's being conveyed in 3 different ways: through text, through imagery, and also through color. And the same on the right. And another little example here is the red font on the white background has really good color contrast, whereas the green on the right, I used a lighter color green specifically for this. This was a difficult decision on my part to make. I wanted to be dark enough so it could be accessible, but also light enough to show you that at a lower contrast, it's a little bit harder to see. Then just kind of go into the do's and don'ts. Don't print a PDF. It produces an image-only PDF. Again, all the text is all little tiny pictures, and this is specifically for printing only and not for digital documents. This is not a document you want to share through your organization, through your office, because this is actually, I was talking with a accessibility professional through Google, and he was telling me that he created a PDF. It was just kind of a funny little joke, like a meme he sent out through his office at Google, and he had one of the coworkers send him an email back, says, "Do you realize I can't read this?" And she was a blind individual, and he didn't realize that he did a print to PDF as opposed to converting it to PDF before he sent out. And it was not accessible for a screener. And he had, again, there was a photo on this page that didn't even have alt text. One, he didn't put it on there, and 2, when he did print to PDF, any alt text that would have been on there was destroyed. Proper way to save a document as a PDF. This works in most of your Microsoft software, really any text editing software that you may have. Microsoft is usually going to be the best because they have a lot of accessibility features in there, but a lot of the other text editing software has the same features. But you want to file, save as a PDF. That's going to be consistent across just about any software you use, any text editing software. Specifically, if you have Acrobat installed on the computer, and even more so the Acrobat plugin for your Microsoft software, you'll have the ability to save as Adobe PDF or for Microsoft Word, there's a little ribbon tab at the top that says Acrobat that you can go in there and click and convert to Adobe PDF, which makes it really helpful and really handy. Either one of those, is save as Adobe PDF or convert to Acrobat PDF, are going to be your best options when it comes to accessibility. Save as PDF keeps the most important aspects of the accessibility. It's going to be your alt text and headings. The save as Adobe PDF or convert to Acrobat PDF will also carry some of the other things in there, like tagging and some of the other little features, primarily table headings and a few other things that are in that Microsoft document. And I kind of want to go into just a little bit of what's going to come in our next webinar. Again, this will be April 29th at the same time, 4 p.m. If we get some questions and some comments about the time being a little too late, I wanted it to be after school so we can get some teachers, educators in. But if it's going to be a little too late, definitely give some feedback. But these 9 topics are what we're really going to kind of walk through. This is going to be repairing or remediating a PDF document. Number one is how to examine that document and know what's in it and what needs to be corrected. Adding the document properties and interactive features such as the links, bookmarks, headers, tags, etc. And then identifying where, say, if somebody did a print to PDF and how to fix that. Again, that's going to be a pretty in-depth process. Acrobat has some really cool tools. I believe one of them is called OCR. I can't remember for the life of me what that stands for, but it's a neat little text recognition feature that's with Adobe, that they can actually read those image text and convert it back to a editable text, which is really helpful. How to add form fields and buttons with labels, with proper labels, and accessible names to the PDF, so it can be a proper interactive document. How to set the document's language, how to add those tags in the reading order, how to determine if it has been properly tagged and how to tag it. Simply how to add alternative text. That's probably the easiest thing with remediating a PDF document. It's really that text that becomes an issue. And then how to use their accessibility checker and when to use it and when to ignore some of the features of that accessibility checker, because sometimes the checker will ask you to fix things that don't need fixing. And one other thing with this upcoming webinar is really going to focus on what's the most important aspects of an accessible document, what people are looking for, how to make it at least usable, and then some of those extras that, if given a strict time crunch, that you can gloss over a little bit. In a perfect world, you want to make the document 110% accessible, but we know that sometimes we have to get that document out there, and we want to do the most we can in the least amount of time. We'll kind of walk through some of that stuff too in order to how to do that. The most important thing to remember, again, is that source document that was used to create the Adobe, or the PDF rather. If you have access to the source, that's the way to go. A little phrase that's used a lot in the accessibility for documents is that source is king. Like, if you can get back to that original Word document or text document that was used to create the PDF, that's where you'll be able to do the most remediation with the least amount of time. You can go in and change that Word document and put the right headings in there and then save it as a proper PDF to save a lot of work on the back end of having to fix an already broken PDF. That's all I've got today. If you have any questions, please ask. My email address is attached to the training. If you need it, I can give it to you now. It's mholloway@faastinc.org. That's MHOLLOWAY. at FAASTinc, FAASTINC.org. I'll gladly answer any questions you may have, put you into contact with someone that can answer your questions if I can't, and definitely keep you informed of when the next webinar is going to happen. This is being recorded, rather. I'm going to post it up on YouTube within the next couple of days, just so it's more accessible to more people. Please share it with your friends, colleagues, and I'll appreciate you coming in.